Well, welcome to another episode of Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper, and I want to thank you for joining us today. It's a big news day here not only in the nation's capital, but across this country, and we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court decision this morning on Roe v. Wade and the impact that we think that may have, particularly for district residents. For some, it's a sad day in the nation. But we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on, and some of the other decisions that the Supreme Court rulings are coming out on as of yesterday and today. But we hope in the meantime you picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. Always like to show it, as I told you, every time those of you who watch the show know I like for you to see the print copy. And hopefully you've had a chance to pick up a copy. There's some places online if you want to get a copy near you. If you go to WashingtonInformer.com, you should be able to find some of those locations. Otherwise, you can also read our digital edition online, as I said, at WashingtonInformer.com. And if you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers and friends can see the broadcast. I just did that with my phone, so I'm even watching myself. Not really watching, but I have myself on Facebook, but just trying to share it with my community, Facebook community, and I hope that you'll do the same. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at WashingtonInformer.com. That's one word, no spaces. Washington Informer TV. I said .com, but that's a mistake. Thanks for correcting me, Chevry. Washington Informer TV, no spaces. So before we get started with our show, let's go ahead and see this week's broadcast by Curtis Knowles, and we'll be back in just a minute.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. DC Mayor Bowser and Metropolitan Police Chief Robert J. Conti III announced Friday a new $20,000 hiring bonus to recruit new officers. The new bonus is a part of the mayor's fiscal 2023 budget, which the D.C. Council approved, that includes 347 new officers to the department. Conti commented saying, "Our goal is that these recruiting incentives will create a pipeline to success for residents and for our youth." Israeli police say that they have concluded the investigation into the police actions during the funeral procession of slain Al Jazeera correspondent Shirin Abu Akleh in Jerusalem last month. The police force is coming under widespread criticism following the procession, in which television footage showed the officers striking mourners with batons, nearly causing the pallbearers to drop the coffin, as well as forcibly taking down a Palestinian flag and arresting people carrying the flag. The Israeli media has widely reported that no officers on duty or their comrades will be penalized for their actions. President Biden has called on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax through September after taking action to boost oil and gas supply chains, including the release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. A White House fact sheet issued Wednesday said Biden has also encouraged oil companies and refiners to boost capacity and output to get more supply on the market. The letter officially said, quote, "But in this unique moment with gas prices near $5 a gallon across the country, President Biden is calling on Congress to suspend the gas tax for 3 months to give Americans a little extra breathing room as they deal with the effects of Putin's war in the Ukraine." Famous DC comedian Dave Chappelle turned down an offer to rename a building at his alma mater, the Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Northwest Washington, D.C. The building was instead named the Theater for Artistic Freedom and Expression, which Chappelle supported. Chappelle commented on the name saying, quote, "I want that for myself, and I want it for every student that is educated at this school." The renaming was planned for last fall, but was postponed in the wake of backlash against Chappelle's Netflix stand-up special, The Closer, which angered many in the LGBTQ community.
Thank you, Curtis. I was looking for your clothes, but we didn't get that this time. But thank you so much for update on some of the local and national news. You know, we only have 6 days left in the month of June, and summer has crept up on us without fanfare. The first day of summer was this week, as a matter of fact, and we're still waiting for those summer temperatures. They will be coming this week, folks. The temperatures this week have been very mild, but we know summer brings cookouts, family vacations, festivals, and so much more. And joining us today for a segment sponsored by Safeway is Beth Goldberg, Senior Manager, Community and Public Affairs, and Tom Laughlin, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Merchandising. We know they are no strangers to Win TV, and we're always glad to have you with us. We also have Senior Vice President we will continue our conversation about Black Music Month, the observance with Busker, Kokamoe DC. Now, if you haven't, I'm sure everybody's heard of Kokamoe, but we look forward to talking to him in a little bit. And our contributing writer, Brenda Seiler, will be joined by jazz saxophonist Davey Yarborough. And so looking forward to that. Last month was our first monthly reporters recap. And we said we'll bring it to you the last Friday of every month. So this week, we'll have reporters Jamila Bay, Samuel P. Collins, Will Ford, and Caleb Benjamin, a new addition to the Washington Informer and Win TV. And we're going to be talking about some of the issues that they've been watching and what's going on here in DC. So first, I'd like to bring on Beth and Tom from Safeway so we can talk about how we can keep the good times rolling in Washington, D.C. Welcome back to Win TV, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Oh, so good. So glad to have you. I told you my little episode at Safeway this weekend. I was there, and this is not my commercial, but I may as well say it. But my Father's Day, I was cooking for Father's Day and doing my shopping there, and just kind of went overboard with the food and the items that I wanted to serve the guests. But if you can do it, you just do it. So how has Safeway prepared for the barbecue season? Because that's where we are right now.
Yeah, great call out, Denise. This is a very fun time of year for us. And you look at some of our many great selling items, whether it's steaks, ribs, cherries are big this time of year, peaches. So it's really being in stock in those top selling items. And our in-stock position this year is better than it's ever been, even though with some of the logistical challenges. But we're really doing all we can to make sure that we have the right items at the right price at the right time of year, frozen ice cream sandwiches, ice cream, to really help our customers have the best shopping experience. Because this time of year, especially around the July 4th time, it's a great time for families to get together and, being outside, as you said, summer just broke, and celebrate.
About that. Yeah, I know that's what's so exciting. I mean, just lighting up those grills and trying to figure out, kind of combinations of food, because summertime is a very special time, to bring people together. Now that we can get together again, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but still, you all are dealing with, just like the average consumers are dealing with inflation that's taking place, and everything that we purchase right now is just skyrocketing. So tell me, Beth or Tom, how can Safeway shoppers actually stretch their dollars so that we can, have the kinds of events we're accustomed to?
Denise, that's a great question. And, we work very hard on that. One of the ways is our Safeway for You app, where you can get extra savings. And based on the items you purchase, you get extra deals, where we have our free rewards program based on how you purchase. You can get free groceries, or you can use those savings to get money off your gas bill. And our app is now a one-stop shop. If you don't feel like going to the grocery stores and you want to order online and have somebody deliver them for you, you can do that too. So, on top of the great deals that we have each week in our ad or our promotions with our club price, using that Safeway for You app is another great way for our customers to save, and especially on items like gas, free groceries, and getting home delivery. It's a big win, and I'll tell you, it continues to gain traction with our customers.
No, I would think so. I mean, I was going to ask you to repeat that, and I'm glad you did when you said free gas and extra groceries. I mean, I love that because that's what people want. I mean, right now we're cooking for our households and guests as well. And so how does that work? If you don't mind explaining that to me, Tom, about the free gas.
Well, Beth, if I'm missing any of the details, feel free and jump in. But
Sure.
Based on how you purchase and the money you spend, you will accrue points, and the points are attached to your phone number. Once you sign up online, you can download the app to your phone.
And it's the Safeway for You app.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
and it'll track it all for you. And then, when you go to the gas pump, you put in your phone number and you get, up to $1 off per gallon on gas. Or like I said, you can use the one-stop shop on the app to get groceries delivered direct to your home.
I love it. And does it matter what gas station you go to, or is it?
ExxonMobil is our current partner.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And Safeway stations as well will
Great
offer
call
the
out,
discount.
Yep,
Okay.
we have 18 Safeway gas stations down in the market too. Great call.
That's news to me. Are there any in the district?
Not the Safeway gas stations. That's where we have our ExxonMobil partnership.
I
but
got you.
the 18 outside of the district.
Wow, I'm telling you, that's talking about a one-stop shop. That's fantastic. So I know you do the weekly sale paper for some of the items you're talking about, and I know that I guess the question is, are there items that we should be waiting for that show up in that sale paper? How does that work?
Right now, cherries are a big deal, and oftentimes, we're kind of at the mercy, if you will, of what the crop will bear. It's been a great crop, but getting the trucks out here to ship it has certainly been a challenge. So that's a key item. I'll tell you another item that continues to take off is our whole watermelons and our watermelon bowls. Customers love, though. You can either get it pre-cut for you, or you can buy your own watermelon, buy it. But it's really the seasonally relevant stuff like peaches, which we'll have in the upcoming ad that broke today, and all the way through 4th of July at great prices. Those are some great seasonally items that are available right now.
I know Safeway would want to take credit for it, but I have to say the fruit this season has been exceptional, especially the watermelon. It's just, you can't even find a bad one. They're all pretty good. So, and I'm glad that, we can get them there and in other places. And you're saying the pre-cut watermelon bowl.
It is. Actually, we have a company-wide contest, and our stores down in Safeway are currently leading the way out of 2,300 stores on selling the most watermelon bowls. So that appeals to everybody. It's a great item. And to your point, Denise, the quality of the watermelons this year and the cherries, as long as we can get it, and the peaches is really good. Really good.
Yeah.
I just learned that our stores are offering yellow watermelons, something that I didn't even know existed until this summer. And I've been told that they're sweeter than red watermelons, that they are a really popular item in other parts of the world, not so much, not as available in the U.S., but we now have them in many of our stores.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Well, as we have that, what I call the extended Juneteenth holiday going into July 4th, it might be something good for folks to try. I know I will, the yellow watermelon.
Yeah.
I've had some once before, but sounds good. Sounds good. So Beth, I know that, we've been participated with you, and Safeway does a lot of community events. Also the Kick Hunger campaign and so many others. What is it? Is there anything that you all are working on right now that we need to be aware of?
Oh my gosh, so many different campaigns. Every month we have a different campaign that we're focused on to support our local communities. I will share, since Washington Informer was such a great partner, the results of our March 2022 Kick Hunger campaign raised $321,950 for the Capital Area Food Bank and the Maryland Food Bank, and that will really go a long way to helping neighbors in need. Most recently this spring, we did a campaign to raise money for Save the Children, to give money to assist families and children affected by the crisis in Ukraine right now. Just in our division here in the Mid-Atlantic part of the country, we raised $211,000 for Save the Children, but nationally through all of our divisions across our corporation, we raised nearly $7 million. So that will hopefully have a good positive impact. We also ran our annual Cancer Research and Treatment campaign. We give money to cancer organizations providing services to patients. offering screening, offering treatment programs. And that campaign, we raised, I have to look in my notes. For that campaign, we raised about 200,000 as well. And I actually misquoted the Ukraine campaign. So our cancer campaign raised $211,000. We are giving out 14 grants to organizations like Children's National Hospital, Nueva Vida, Arlington Free Clinic. But our Ukraine campaign, our division raised $271,934. So we really have a busy community program going on. And we're so grateful to our associates and our customers who are so generous in supporting the campaigns when we run them at check stands in our store, in our many stores. I do want to mention that in August, we're going to be partnering with the Washington Informer again. And this is going to be our 6th annual School Spirit campaign. And through this campaign, every Safeway store in the Mid-Atlantic Division in Delaware, Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, each store picks a school in their local community on whose behalf they fundraise. And the schools get the proceeds of the money raised in the store. They can use that for school supplies, school programs, school-based food pantries, and more. And in the first 5 years that we've run this campaign, we've supported about 400 schools, given away over close to $1.5 million. And we partner in DC with some really great organizations, including your newspaper. We also partner with El Tiempo Latino, with the Washington Commanders. We work with Fox 5 TV and Odyssey Radio, and it's really a team effort that brings great results for our local schools.
Well, that was that was a mouthful there, Beth, and it shows. And that's the whole idea, because we are trying to supply mouthfuls of food and support for those who need it. And I think it's great that Safeway has, taken is a good community partner, that you found places.
We also have a campaign this month, which is called Fill a Glass with Hope, which we're presenting in partnership all month long with the American Dairy Association, where we are raising money to provide our local food banks with liquid milk, because very often milk, because it's a perishable item, is one of the most requested but least donated items that food banks receive. And the nutritional value, particularly for children, is so important. And so when this campaign concludes at the end of June, we'll be donating milk to our local food banks. And until then, customers can come into their local Safeways and make a donation at check stand and donate to the Fill a Glass with Hope campaign.
I think that's really great. And like I was saying, at least when it comes to hunger in DC, we know that it's still a critical problem. Actually all over, not just DC, but in the whole metropolitan area and around the country. Food insecurity seems to be worsening, which now is putting a lot more pressure on companies like Safeway to step up, and communities that shop in Safeway to support those programs to make sure that people have enough to eat. So I'm really, here at the Washington Informer, we're very proud to be a part of all of these efforts. And glad that you all are always here to share what you're doing.
Yeah, so, throughout the year, we raise funds on behalf of what is now known as our Nourishing Neighbors Initiative. And we actually raised another $302,000 during May. We did a campaign that will fund organizations providing summer meals for children when schools are closed. Yeah. As well as organizations that are connecting their clients to federal meals programs like SNAP and WIC. And so we are providing support to those organizations to address hunger relief throughout the year. It's something that we are working on.
Well, we want to thank you so much for sharing all of this great information with us. Tom, I want you to feel better. It looks like you got a little something going on over there.
I'll be okay.
Good. But because you all have a lot of work to do, and you're doing a lot of work, to support the community. So I really hope that you're feeling okay. And I want to thank both of you all, like I said, for being with us today and sharing all of this great news and letting the community know how we can support each other through our donations to the programs that you sponsor. So again, thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you, Denise.
All righty. Thank you. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. And, we often, as I was going on now, I'm sniffling, but I think it's really good when I think about, what we're planning for like Juneteenth or, these cookouts and this food that we buy and how we want to, share it with our friends and what have you. And there are people that are still going hungry in the city or in this region. So I think it's a good thing. And that's why we wanted to bring Safeway on. That's why we partner with Safeway to make sure that not only can we help to feed our community, but we can help to support those institutions that make food available for those who need it. But we're talking about summer fun and all the excitement that's been happening. We're so glad to be out again. And like I said, this is Black Music Appreciation Month. And Sherry and I were sort of brainstorming. And, Kokamoe, the rapper, came to us. He was referred to us by quite a few people. And while we watched this video, I'm going to tell you what Kokamoe would tell me. We're not watching the video. Okay, so what I am going to say is what Kokamoe would say to you is Google him at Kokamoe. So we're going to show that in a minute. But I want to welcome him to Win TV. Kokamoe, are you there? So I need you to unmute yourself so we can hear you. There you go. All right, we're good. We're good. How are you? And welcome to Win TV.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a little time to spend with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, basically, man, it's hard to say. I'm an electrician.
Okay.
That's what I do. And I was born and raised in Southeast. Now I live in Trinidad. And basically, I be rapping, and it's Kokamoe. Happy.
You know what DC folks do? We ask, where are you from? So you already told us Southeast. And then we start asking about schools. So, any schools you want to shout out so we know the neighborhood in Southeast? Because Southeast is a big space.
They got to go, all three of them. My elementary school, shout out to Highland that they call Freebie Hope. My middle school, shout out to John Philip Sousa. That's my middle school. And my best school, shout out to Anacostia, class of 88.
Woo! Fantastic. Class of 88. Yeah. And so did you go from there and then train to become an electrician? How did you get into that business?
No, the electrical part is I was at Arts Training Center, and God rest his soul, I met this guy named David Farmer. And you know how they always say, you go through trades and they say, jack of all trades and the master of none?
Yeah.
He said, man, I'm not the master of nothing but one. When he said he's the master of one, I said, I want to be just like him. And from that point on, that's what I am, a master electrician, and God rest his soul.
Wow.
He told me everything I know.
That is fantastic because, people don't praise the trades as they should until they need it.
Yeah. Let me praise that. I got my own business too. I can show you my business card and everything. It's Goods Electrical Service.
Goods, Goods.
Goodes. Goods
Okay.
Electrical Service.
So we call you Kokamoe, but what was your born name?
Thomas Good. First name Thomas and last name Good.
All right. So I knew Good is a business name came in there from did come from your last name, and I wanted to share that with you. So how did you get the name Kokamoe?
You know who gave me that name? Nick. That's why it's called a nickname. Nickname. It's called a nickname.
But where did it come from? Really? I mean, who?
Yeah, because it was just a long story about some people that I knew. A guy I knew name was Kokamoe, and then it's just something that happened in life that made me pursue that name. I don't want to get into it, but
yeah,
good. It's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's just I just love that name for the reason of I just always want to just people hear that name, they'll always smile. Like it's differently, but when they hear me rapping about everything I say, it's just something like even if you have a bad day or something, like it's something I can say that you'll remember me by. You see what I'm saying? Just leaving something that's a moment that touched your heart.
So I know it works because that's why you're here, because it works.
Yes.
And you, how did you? I mean, this whole rap, this whole genre of rapping. How did you get into that? And
I mean, like number one, what happened was what made me start rapping. I used to always rap because God put it in my heart. Like he just throw the words and they be coming so fast that you can't understand it. But when they come out, it makes sense. And then what made me start rapping on the bus is because them little kids get on there so disrespectful. Like, and you know how I just get on there just to get their attention. Once I got the kids' attention, they ain't doing nothing, talking all disrespectful to the grown-ups. I mean, like, they wild on it. And once they hear me rap, they not worried about nothing. They not thinking about doing none of that. I just make it go. And then after I do that, you'll have older people listening because they say, hold on, this man ain't saying no cuss words. This man just rapping just about everything I'm looking at. And the way I put it in a way to where you can reality see it and imagine it. You see what I'm saying? And then that's what make you smile because I tell a plain old truth, like right there.
So, I mean, is there, if you don't mind sharing with us, Kokamoe, is that particularly with the kids, is there something, I mean, is everything that you do brand new, or do you repeat certain raps that, will get their attention? How do you do that?
Everything be brand new, but I repeat certain raps because it's called a comeback rap. You come back to that to make your story even better. You'll come back with a rap that people already will listen and know how good it sounds. Because when you come with the best bars, when you come with the best punchlines, people going to remember them. But not only just that, they already know you're going to say something else even better. You see what I'm saying? If they know how good that one sound, they can imagine like whatever else I'm going to go say. Because, I mean, I just make it up as I see, like as I'm going. Easily, like, and never got to say no cuss words. I don't got to talk about no shooting up this. I ain't got to talk about disrespecting no females or none of that.
So, you mind giving us a taste of Kokamoe rap?
Okay. I rap so tight, I put words together. I'm really not smart. Guess what? I'm just clever. And thank God it's a Friday. As I finish from the words I say, I keep it so real to the nitty and the gritty. On my chest is the key to the city. And with your eyes, you can clearly see it says Kokamoe.
I like it. Sherry's over here clapping as well. I mean, and the kids love it too. I mean, so how did you decide to do? Well, you just talked about that, what you saw happening on buses and what have you. Go ahead.
What happened is I decided to rap because, like, each day I wake up and I thank God, like, not just to be thankful to wake up and open your eyes, but then like the people you love around you, ain't nobody dead or something happened in the news, and then you can be able to get up and walk to the mirror. So when I look in the mirror and I smile, I say, as I go out to this world, I'm gonna make somebody else smile because a good smile is better than any sad face. And it'll take your problems away because we all got problems. I can say something or rap about something that make people just fade out of their problems for a moment. It's called escaping reality.
I love it. I love it. And so you, I mean, we had you here on Win TV, but we know we're not the first media organization to discover you. You've been written about in the Washington Post, and I hear, was it Channel 9? Some other stations have covered you. And so what, I mean, when you do this, you've given us a great message, but I mean, what is it that was there anything particular you had hoped that your rap career where it would take you, or are you kind of satisfied with what
I'm not satisfied because I want to rap to where I want to get a check. I mean, I'm sure it's not a big check.
I got you.
I want to get somebody that will produce me, right? If I make you $1 million, just give me 250,000. You get the rest of it, and we shouldn't have no problems because you making your problem for looking out for me. All I just want is my little piece of change, and we gonna work together. Because as long as I make you money, you gonna make sure I'm good. That's
right.
all.
And your rapping has taken you places. I mean, tell us some of the places besides the metro, because that's what I think is really cool, because that's what buskers do. They perform on the street. But you've gone other places. Tell us about that.
I ain't never been other places, but like only Baltimore. I mean, different schools, different places, but most of it's been in the city. But people all over the internet that heard me because more people videotape me. I didn't even know I was that famous until people say, man, we done heard you in California, New York, Delaware. We already know you. But I never been them places.
Wow.
So they said if I was to go them places, they'll already you already be known.
Oh, well, so we need to find a agent for Kokomo.
Yeah, we can eat. We all can eat. Proceeds to go to the Washington Informer. Look, we all gonna eat.
I hear you. That's good. But you did perform, I understand, with Junkyard recently at a program over
Backyard. Yeah, that was with Backyard Upstate.
Right. Yeah.
And they got that on YouTube. Oh man, that was a good one. And I done performed with Junkyard before. I done performed with almost everybody except for Trouble Funk.
Wow.
That's the only person I'm missing, Trouble Funk. But everybody else, I done performed with.
That's amazing. I love your voice. I love your voice. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Chuck, a little bit.
Yeah. Oh man, but that's who really got me inspired to really go harder with the rapping, because when I heard him one day, I'm talking about me, my two best friends. We was going to Wilmers Park in 1986.
Woo,
That's when Cisco was out.
Uh-huh.
So we pulled over because we got lost. But when we pulled over, Chuck had his limousine right there. So we was like, Chuck, can you give us information on how to get to Wilmers Park? He was like, man, I'm lost too. So he said, we was like, Chuck, can you put us on display? He said, man, I ain't gonna remember that, man. You gotta write it down. So when we got up there and it was so packed, when he said our name from all the way back there, and he said, Mama said, son, one day I'll be a man. I might get a break and plant a big band. People will be coming from miles around, but I gotta make them boogie when the sun go down. And the sun was just getting dark, and he said that. I'm talking about he cranked so bad. I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want.
Wow.
Because he had everybody mesmerized.
I know people, you know, I wish you the best of luck, because, you know, I think you bring something to the city that the city appreciates. And it's you know, it's a DC thing, and you're homegrown, but yet you're making a difference, and with your words and your spirit. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and we're going to hopefully get this out, and who knows, we might see you at the BET Awards or someplace.
If I be there, y'all gonna love it. I'm trying to tell you, I'm gonna put the E in the T. It's gonna say beat. That ain't easy. Beat.
Well, keep doing what you do, Kokomo, and good luck to your professional career as well. And we're gonna stay in touch. And Google him. We put it up here. Google him, Kokamoe DC. You got it right there. All right. Wish you the best. So that was great, and we're still celebrating Black music Appreciation Month. So I'm going to bring on Brenda Seiler, who's going to bring on another friend, Davey Yarborough. I'm going to throw it to you, Brenda, but I want to thank you all. We're going to keep celebrating. So it's all yours.
Thank you so very much. And I'm happy to be here. From hip hop to go-go to jazz, it's all about Black music. And that's what we're talking about this month. And I'm happy to introduce to our audience Davey Yarborough, who is known around our town and even outside of our town as such a wonderful jazz educator. Full disclosure, Davey and I graduated from high school together, Calvin Coolidge High School in Northwest. So thank you, Davey, for being with us. And we want to hear a little bit about your background in terms of how you got to be known and to become one of our great jazz educators.
Well, thank you, Brenda, and thank you for having me on. Denise as well. Wow, a little bit about my background. As you said, we went to Coolidge, but with me, it started at it really started at the Humpty Dumpty Nursery School. I'm a native Washingtonian, and I said it one day. I'm working on my memoirs, and I was talking to my daughter, and she says, where'd you go to preschool? And it came back. I had forgotten all about it, but anyway. Humpty Dumpty Nursery School, Whittier Elementary School, Paul Junior High, Verbeau Junior High, Calvin Coolidge, Federal City College, UDC, Howard University, and then I took a few courses in University of Miami and Trinity College. So how I got into music goes all the way back to elementary school, where I used to play my parents' records. And in those days, we had field trips to Constitution Hall, and we would watch the National Symphony rehearse. And they did Benjamin Britten's Young People's Guide to the Orchestra, where they introduced all the orchestras. And I decided at that point I wanted to be a musician. Didn't know what instrument, but I had a best buddy in elementary school. His name was Bertrand Thomas. You might remember Randy Thomas.
Randy, yes.
Yeah. Well, Randy had a silver clarinet. That thing was gorgeous. So I went home and told my dad I wanted a clarinet. I didn't get a silver clarinet, but I did get a clarinet. And that's basically how I started. And I didn't get private lessons, but I did participate in the band programs from elementary all the way through high school and had a pretty good ear. And
but I'm sorry to interrupt, but your trajectory led you to the Duke Ellington School.
Yes.
Because that's where a lot of us really saw the impact that you were having on what I call growing the next generation of fine musicians, and especially those in jazz. And talk about the kinds of things that you were doing at Duke Ellington, because there's going to be an award named after you.
It's already there.
Yes, yes.
Once I had the privilege of being able to work at Ellington and start the jazz studies program as a part of the curriculum, I decided to think about how I came up. And like I said, I didn't get private lessons and things like that, but I ran into a lot of musicians and they all treated me like gold. I've had some of the best mentoring from some of the greatest artists, DC and nationally, but the DC artists introduced me to the nationally known artists, the Keita Betts, the Arthur Capehart when I was in junior high school, and Roberta Flack was my homeroom teacher at Verbeau, and Steve Novosel at that time. Her name was Roberta Novosel, so
that's right.
Well, I met Steve. He used to pick her up and take her over to Mr. Henry's, and we struck up conversations, and he was one of those that were really instrumental. He and Arthur Capehart, who was the band director at Verbeau, introduced me to so many places. We had so many venues in DC that there was always a place to go. Presidential Arms had cabaret houses all up and down it was 13th and G, 14th and G, and but musicians came from out of town and they knew the artists that were in town, which they had the Howard Theater and places like that. So they took me around and introduced me to these people, let me sit in with them and hone my skills. So I wanted to do the same thing at Ellington. I wanted, any kid that would come to Ellington had already proven that they want to be an artist, and I wanted them to have the same type of benefits. So what I started doing was taking the kids around to meet the artistry that I knew, Billy Taylor, at the Kennedy Center, and man, it was so many. Gene Foster, I just ran across. We used to play at the Jackie Lee's Lounge. And Jesse Adams was the band director at Coolidge, and he played all over town too with different groups. So that's basically what I was doing at Ellington. I wanted to make sure the young people had the mentorship to help direct them, because it definitely helped me.
And then you and your wife, Esther Williams, who is a beautiful vocalist, put together your hearts to start the Washington Arts Jazz Institute, which I think is just a wonderful part of your legacy. What is it that you want to try to do with the Institute, and what you have been doing with the Institute?
Well, I'll start by saying it was because of one of my mentors in college that sent me on a gig that Esther was actually featured, because she had just released her album. But we started dating about a year after that. But anyway, what we want to do, or decided we want to do, and we're still working at it, we want to build an intergenerational support system for young people who know they want to be in the arts. I knew I wanted to be in arts in elementary school. Having that type of a support system all the way through has really helped me. It also helps to eliminate the generation gap. It allows the interaction, instant interaction between generations. Want to make sure that everyone, and we do this for free. Our program, the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, is a mentoring program that is geared towards helping and build that support system for young people in Washington who know they want to be an artist. And from the time that they decide they want to be an artist until they're seniors, and they can become the mentors and give back.
And the wonderful thing about it as well, you are able to get instruments donated for the students. If they are not able to afford them themselves with their families, you go out and find instruments for your students. How does that work, and what is the ask that you give, and who are you getting these wonderful instruments from?
Well, it started like Esther was one of those who went to attic sales and thrift shops. I went to pawn shops to get my instruments, because after the clarinet, everything else I had to buy myself. And so I would scrounge around to different places until I found, the instruments, and they were cheaper than buying them brand new. So I still do that to find instruments, and we get them in the pawn shop or wherever and have them cleaned up. And those instruments become, when we find a young person who we feel is really going to be dedicated and doesn't have an instrument to go on to the next level, then we'll give it to them. If they finally get an instrument while they're there, then it'll revert back to the Institute to go to a young person who may not have one at that point. And we've been blessed. We've done it that way. Just this year, we had an organization in Fairfax County that got in contact with one of my parents, and they just donated about 40 instruments.
40? Wow.
But all of them aren't in great condition or anything. Some of them are actually obsolete, but we didn't care. We went and got all of them. We'll figure out which ones can be used. So we do have some. And I have a young student to show you how the mentoring thing I really feel great about. A young man, Chris Nichols, who is now pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church in Southeast, he started a music store. Now he wants to start a music program at his church. So I immediately just split those instruments in half and sent them to him to continue that legacy. And hopefully that's the other thing that we wanted to do. We want to let the young people know that they come through DC, they come up, they go to college, they get scholarships and things like that. Well, we want to continue that system. So hopefully they don't all move away and go to New York or wherever and go, but they come back and reinvest or into their communities, and hopefully to continue what we're trying to do.
So how can people donate to the Jazz Institute? And then let us know about if there's still spaces available for the program this summer for kids.
Yeah, well, this summer we start next week, so we're basically, and we know we're about at capacity 1 because it's the first time we go back in person since COVID. But our website is www.wjai.org, and that will direct you. The front page will even direct you to how you can donate there, and that's the one I remember. So we'll go with that. And the other question was, I forgot.
Just in terms of where things were with the kids registering, but you
Oh,
answered
yeah.
that. You've got full capacity. And one of the things that's also a blessing about your program is that it's housed at People's United Methodist Church, and you can
United Church of Christ.
and you bring the group together. You have a group that you play with, and you along with Esther do jazz vespers and other services at People's, and you all have a wonderful way of doing great arrangements of faith music in a jazzy style. Tell us about how long that affiliation has been going on with People's United Methodist Church on 13th Street Northwest.
Yeah, that's People's Congregational United Church of
I'm sorry.
Christ.
Okay.
Esther and I have been, our family has been affiliated with them about 25 years. And I always, when I was coming up, ran into situations where churches shun jazz. And I've always been of the mindset that there are only 12 tones in our European classical music, and they're used in all types of music, all styles of music, and we are all children of God. So there should not be. And my grandfather told me when I was a kid that song was the greatest gift you could give back to your creator. And I've always lived with that. And he didn't say what type of song. He didn't say whether it had to be classical, spiritual, or whatever. He said a song. And as long as the song is sincere, or the music is sincere, then it's that gift. And if you're giving your mindset to helping people feel better, and to think righteously, then it should work. And that's the attitude that we took to the church. And actually, the leadership of the church bought into it and allowed us to begin to present in the style of jazz, but spiritual music.
And you were able to, as you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Dr. Billy Taylor, people that have supported you, but you have a gift in the workspace, the room, the music room there at the church that I admired and just kind of had to hold my breath when I saw it. You had a piano donated to the program. Tell our audience where that gift came from.
Well, that piano used to belong to Shirley Horn. Her daughter, Rainey, donated it to the Institute when Shirley passed away. And I used to call her Aunt Shirley. She wasn't my aunt, but she treated me like gold. She was probably one of the few people I allowed to get away with calling me Little Davey, even when I was a little older than little. But yes, we have had. There were a lot of DC giants who passed in their. Matter of fact, we just got from the estate of Andrew N. White III, who was the world's authority on John Coltrane. I was at his house yesterday because we lost him, not through COVID, but during the COVID time. And they donated some music stands and some music and some other things. I'm trying to remember, Nap Turner, noted from WPFW radio, family left a bass, because Nap was also a bass player, where they donated that, which we still have. And some of our jazz giants that we love today, Corcoran Holt, Ben Williams, Eric Wheeler, all from DC, all played on those instruments when they were with the Institute. And of course, the great Keter Betts, who was a mentor of mine. I played in this group a few times. Well, I played with him for about 5 years. And but he would come over to Ellington when I was at Ellington and give workshops, and the same thing with WJAI.
Well, this is wonderful. And we want to remind people that they can donate to WJAI. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a wonderful donation, helpful. And thank you, Davey, for what you're doing and how you're continuing to give back to the community and especially give back to our young musicians.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
I can't help to say Coolidge in the house. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Got to say that. And Kevin Johnson is here. He gave you a shout out too.
Hey,
He's so proud of you. So, you have homegrown fans as well as national, international fans. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Like I said, our pleasure. And keep doing what you're doing. You're doing just as much as any other of the luminaries. You are one of the DC icons as well. All both of you.
We share in that space together. Brenda, thank you so much too for this
My
interview.
pleasure.
Really great. I could have listened much longer, but we're running out of time and how that goes. So thank you so much, both of you all. All righty. That was our celebration of Black Music Month. We're almost out of the month. It ends on June 30th, and we'll see what comes up next month, Sherry. But we always want to give shout outs and talk to our folks who are our own homegrown musicians who are making a difference not only in DC, nationally, and around the world. And Davey Yarborough certainly falls in that category. We're going to jump now to the news. We're going to jump to our group of reporters from Washington Informer. I'm looking forward. I think we're going to bring them up now, Chevry. We've got Kayla Benjamin, Will Ford, Jamila Bay. Hey, Jamila, how are you? Will, Sam? Okay, everybody unmute yourself because I want to hear you. And we'll get Kayla on in a minute. But
hello.
This is a hot news day. And so, Jamila, I want to start with you really quickly because it's a sad day for many people, particularly many women around the country. And with the Supreme Court decision that came out this morning, Stacey Brown has actually covered that for us. But can you just weigh in on tell us what the decision was?
In a nutshell, for the first time in memory, the Supreme Court eliminated a constitutional right enjoyed by American people. 6-3 decision, Roe v. Wade is overturned. This means that federally, there's no national protection for women who want to access abortion health care. It's left up to each individual state, which is why there are a lot of people going, well, I live in a place where it's not an issue, and a lot of other people are grieving going, it's all but banned where I live.
Thank you. And I'm going to bring Kayla in really quick. Not that this is supposed to be a women's conversation, but it does have that's the decision that women now don't have the right to choose what they want to do with their own bodies. And so, and Kayla, I don't want to get into an age, but as a younger woman, I'm wanting to know, how you feel. You've been sort of emotional about that today. You can take yourself off mute because we'd like to hear a little bit from you.
Yeah, I can say that me and a lot of my friends have been sort of in shock this morning. I'm just getting a lot of messages of people in my circles saying, basically just, I feel numb. I don't know what to do. This feels like it could greatly change the trajectory of my life if something unexpected were to happen to me. And I've also been thinking a lot about what this ruling means about our democracy, especially as somebody who lives in DC. So right now, kind of like what Jamila was saying, I live somewhere where the reproductive rights are pretty solid here in DC, but because DC doesn't have statehood, there's really no guarantee that that will always be true. And we're heading into a year where where Congress may shift, and I'm really just nervous about what that could mean for reproductive rights where I live.
Indeed.
Yeah, Jamila, did you want to jump back in?
Just very quickly, thank you for bringing up the statehood issue. There was one time in the history of this nation that an elected congressional representative was told, you cannot speak on this issue that exclusively affects your constituency. That was Eleanor Holmes Norton talking about the federally imposed 20-week abortion ban that didn't happen. But, at the time, Representative Darrell Issa of California was instrumental in saying, no, you can't speak. We're deciding for you. And that is only because DC is not considered a state. It's not a state. It's legally not a state. We know we should be, but taxation without representation is real.
Bill, have you heard any reaction from where you are out there in Prince George's County? I don't know if anybody's, and you might want to take yourself off of mute as well. But if there are folks out there that are, on social media or any elected officials or what's going on, you got a big candidates race coming up in a couple of weeks, and I don't know if any of the candidates have weighed in.
There have been probably 24 statements from county, state, federal officials who have all weighed in on it. And even if you, like myself and Sam, we're men, but we have women in our lives. I have a daughter. This touches everyone. Point blank, period. It just does. And there's a lot of statements that are saying that. I got word, and I'm waiting to get confirmation. There could be a couple of rallies going on locally. I'm waiting to get confirmation of that, and I'm going to see if I can go to one of them, which is not surprising. DC is a home of rallies. That's the nation's capital.
Yeah,
that's not surprising.
Our iconic photographer Roy Lewis is out there in front of Supreme Court right now, and so we'll be posting some of his photos to WashingtonInformer.com. Sam, is there anything that you want to weigh in on this? Because I also want to talk about the big news in DC, which is the mayoral and the council election on Tuesday. No real surprises there, but maybe you think there were some surprises on Tuesday. Sam?
Briefly on the abortion issue. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Briefly on the abortion issue, looking at it in context, we can see a reaction to progressiveness that has taken place over the last few decades. And if you look at it with what happened with Roe v. Wade, and now with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas talking about looking at Loving and other landmark decisions, we can see the beginning of the end, for a lot that has really taken place in this country. That's my 2 cents on what happened with Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the mayoral race, from what I've been hearing and speaking with constituents over the last few months, what happened on Tuesday was not really a surprise. I think in terms of the mayoral race, what really solidified it for Mayor Bowser, and please understand that, her win was not necessarily decisive. She got about 50%, but if you added what council members Trayon White and Robert White accumulated combined, they got, if not close, then more than her. So at the point when both whites jumped into the race, there was already discussion about them splitting the anti-Bowser vote, but at the very same time, Bowser is a professional campaigner, and from ANC on up, she has never lost a race. She's very clear and articulate about what she has done and what she hopes to do in her position. So what happened on Tuesday was not a surprise. Now, one thing that people might want to look at is what's happening on the council side. The council is a bit more progressive, quote unquote, depending on who you talk to, with Zachary Parker taking Ward 5 and Ward 3 getting more progressive as well. There is potential for, the continuation of a tug of war between the council and Phil Mendelson, and more importantly, the council and Mayor Bowser. So that's definitely a lot to look into. But, even though we saw what happened on Tuesday, it was not really decisive. I think one factor was the low voter turnout. We had about 18%, and we even still had mail-in ballots to still count. So why call the race at that point? I'm not entirely sure, but there are still ballots to count, and even with it still being finished or almost finished, the results are staying the same.
I want to read briefly. Councilmember White, of course, congratulated Trayon White, congratulated Mayor Bowser But he said he in a I guess this was a tweet. He said we have to wake up in the city because we are asleep. 19% came out and 81% of the people stayed home. This is not the end. I guess the end for him is not the end for him, as he's saying, but he's still very dismayed about the voter turnout. And I think what we're seeing in the Supreme Court, I mean, still in those decisions, in what Kayla and Jamila talked about, is that, by people not understanding the power of their vote. I want you all to talk about that a little bit. This is the consequence of these low voter turnouts that we've been experiencing, not here in the District of Columbia. Well, you got a race coming up there in Prince George's, as I said before. It's a primary race, but people are not engaged. Jamila, you want to talk about that, or Will, or Kayla? Anybody want to jump in and talk about the impact of voter apathy?
Former Attorney General Eric Holder spoke a few weeks back on Washington Post Live with Jonathan Capehart. He said, this country is a political apartheid state. It is where these gerrymandered places around the country get these right-wing Republican conservatives in, and they are so completely safe statistically that they cannot be voted out, even if they vote completely contrary to their constituents' wishes. You don't have to gerrymander if you make it such that people don't think they need to show up to the poll. We see very clearly in DC, we see very clearly in PG County and the races happening all over the country. Indeed, it's about who turns out and who shows up to vote. That's gonna give you what you have.
What do you think is going to happen out there in the county, Will? You got the primary coming up, I think, is it July 17th?
July 19th.
July 19th. Right. Mm-hmm. You got how many people in this governor's race? Quite a few.
You have in the governor's race about 16. Mm-hmm. 9 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and you have 3 who are unaffiliated that will run in the November general election. But I want to touch on something Jamila kind of pointed out. You can look at messaging also as a factor. The Democrats, just speaking of Maryland, they are very pleased that 9 people are now it's 9 because Rashawn Baker stepped out of the race June 10th. That 9 people are they're saying it's showing their diversity. The Republicans, even if the mainstream or most folks will hear their messaging and say they don't know what in the heck of beans they're talking about, but they stick together and they will vote no matter what. There's your 2 differences. And what Sam has mentioned, you have a lot of vote splitting. I had one high-ranking Maryland Democrat, I don't want to say who it is, but I can say it was a gentleman. When the first of the members of those who were going to run for the Democratic Party coming out, and you had 3 blacks, he told me right in my ear, there's going to be some vote splitting. And you see it. DC was just an example of vote splitting.
Interesting. Interesting. So, I want to, but you have, again, with the governor's race, I still want to talk a little bit about that, Will, because the commercials have been I think there are more commercials on television right now that with the DC race over, it's not as competitive, but when you had DC, Maryland, and that's all you saw. That consumed the TV time. But who would you predict at this point will end up being winning the governor primary in Maryland?
Well, as my wife has said, you're horrible at predictions. So let me summarize it this way. The Baltimore Sun and the University of Baltimore did the first independent poll, actually. It was released earlier this month. And it showed Peter Franchot ahead with about 20% of likely Democratic voters to support him. Westmore was second, and then Tom Perez was in third place with 12%. However, with the exception of his opponents in their campaign, Wes Moore has plenty of momentum. And he said it when we covered when several high-ranking Prince George's officials, state and local officials, came out and will back him, who was supporting Rashawn Baker. He is jumping hard. And you may wonder, well, why Prince George's County? Well, Prince George's County has the highest percentage of Democrats in Maryland. You go after where the vote is. He has a lot of momentum. Now, you want to talk about endorsements? Well, that can go all over the place. Think about Washington Post endorsed Tom Perez. Mm-hmm. He's known as a labor guy. But it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, on the Republican side, you have Kelly Schultz. She ranked in that University of Baltimore poll about 5 percentage points ahead of Delegate Dan Cox. He is supported and was endorsed as far as last year by Donald Trump. She's only ahead by 5 percentage points. That's not a whole lot, quite frankly.
Right. Well, I know, one of the things that we've been talking about with this election, or what some of the key issues are, these candidates are going to be addressing moving forward, and some of the things that we'll be looking at as reporters that impact our community. I wanted Kayla really to tell us, we're so happy to have her with us because she comes from Report for America. And I wanted you to, Kayla, just give a little bit of your background and what Report for America is all about, so that when folks see your name, they'll say, oh, that's Report for America.
Sure. Well, I'm really excited to be here. And basically, Report for America, it's a pretty new organization. It's an organization that works to support local media by placing young journalists in local newsrooms that otherwise might have trouble hiring someone new. So the organization helps to find qualified journalists and partner them with newsrooms and helps pay your salary, so that more newsrooms can add beats that otherwise wouldn't be covered. I'm really excited to be writing about the environment for the Informer.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you about, environment, because I know you've already started doing a couple of stories that are environment related. And we thought we wanted to have someone to cover the environment because people don't always, African Americans don't always see their connection between, this whole environmental movement. We don't see ourselves in it. But you seem to have real passion for that, to make sure that those stories are told, which is why we selected you to be with us to make, to get those stories told. And you actually had a chance to attend the 25th anniversary of DC Water. And I want to talk a little bit about that because it raised a question for you that I think is going to be one of those issues we'll be looking at going down the road. You want to share that?
Yeah. So at this event, there were all these people, and it was like a really great 25th anniversary celebration. And one of the things that DC Water repeated over and over again was that they are a world-class water authority. And at the same time, when I was talking to people in the community, people were saying, oh, I don't drink tap water. What? And I was thinking, how can both of those things be true at the same time? And what does that really mean? Is there a problem with the water, or is there a problem with the communication? And this is a question I really am looking forward to diving deeper into. What I've found so far, just in like some sort of basic reading, is that DC tap water is for the most part safe according to EPA standards, but putting a filter either on your faucet or using a pitcher-based filter is recommended. And even if the water itself is safe, if your pipes are older and made of lead, you can still sometimes have issues with leaching. But DC does treat the water in ways that mostly prevent that. That's the very basic of what I've found so far.
Well, I've written about water. I have an issue myself, and I'm just trying to figure out, it's water supply. I think that's also an issue that I'm concerned about. And we've had situations where people couldn't, because of storms or what have you, there was no water that was accessible. And buying water, it's like gas. It's like baby formula. Sometimes all of a sudden you don't have access to it, and you don't understand why. So I'm glad you're going to follow that. But also for the rest of you, as it relates to this election moving forward, Supreme Court decisions, is there something you want to share with us that raises a red flag for you? Speaking of red flags, we talked about gun laws, all of that. Had a Supreme Court decision yesterday on impacting Miranda rights. Jamila left. So Sam, what about you?
I'll jump in very quickly. I don't know if Sam or anyone got a little nugget on their phone. President Biden said he gave an update and voiced his view on it. He simply said, quote, "This is not over." That's what you're going to see in a lot of elections. I know in Maryland it's going to be a topic, as I mentioned earlier, about possibly a couple of rallies that's going to be planned immediately. This is not over. And this is going to be a nugget in the fall, for sure.
Sam?
I have 2 cents, and I'm going to tie in the reasoning we did earlier about voter turnout and about how that affects the people brought into office, that affect gerrymandering and Supreme Court appointments. In the United States in particular, with the Democratic Party, now the Republican Party on one side, because they're very conservative, the people who are affiliated with that party, they're all pretty much homogenous. But the Democratic Party has a wide variety of interests. And I know in DC in particular, you have people who are affiliated with the Democratic Party, but don't have democratic values. I'm saying this because the Democrats, with everything that has been going on over the last 15, 20 years or so, they have been very indecisive in some respects as it relates to pushing the ball forward and negating what the Republicans are doing. And it has created an atmosphere where the Republicans are able to pretty much do what it is that they want to do in dialing back a lot of the issues that we have progressed on as a nation. So going into the midterm elections, going into November, I think it's incumbent, not even I, but just in speaking with people, who feel betrayed by the Democratic Party, who feel like they're being marginalized by the Democratic Party, it is incumbent upon Democrats to listen to them, because every day there are challengers coming up, testing incumbents, such as what happened in South Carolina with Marcel Dixon and Jim Clyburn. There are people coming up to test these incumbents because the incumbents are sitting in office for such a long time. And as they sit in office, they become more moderate and more conservative because their end goal is to keep office and not go with the times and represent the people for who they truly are. So until the people in power address that issue, you will continue seeing apathy among voters. All of that is very well connected. So I think that's a message that politicians need to take home from the White House on down.
Well, Jamila, I wanted to just kind of wrap this up a little bit and bring up another topic we haven't talked about, which is the January 6th hearings. And when Sam talks about politicians and we take a look at the congressman who is leading, the two actually that are leading these hearings, Congressman Benny Thompson and Congresswoman Liz Cheney, right? I mean, who have really, folks believe they've done a really tremendous job in laying out, what Trump appears to have been responsible for this insurrection. And also, Sam talks about the Republicans staying together, but the point, why are they sticking together behind an issue that is now, we're seeing more and more that there was some culpability with many in the White House as it relates to this insurrection. Can you just give us maybe your feeling on how these hearings are going, the role of Congressman Benny Thompson, and where you think this is going to end up?
These hearings are about American democracy, period, full stop. Either you agree with the rule of law and that no one is above it, or you believe in some kind of oligarchy where might makes right. There is no in between. These hearings are demonstrating, illustrating, and in full color on display with the video, that this was a concerted effort to stop the legitimate, fair, and already done transfer of power from the 45th president to Joe Biden. And the fact that the 45th president had so much in terms of, I'm trying to be factual and not use my conjecture. This was terrifying. This was frightening. But he went into this knowing that what he was doing was illegal, was not going to stand. And he gathered his sycophants around him who would do his bidding, even though they shouldn't have. The greater risk here is what happens if all of this comes out and nothing happens, if there is no culpability for trying to dismantle American political systems and democracy. If people see that there are some who are above the law, I refer people back to Orwell. Whether it's animals or people just deciding, well, I'll just be an individual and run around and do what I want. This is frightening. This is very frightening. It didn't have to be so.
Yeah, I'm gonna close out, but Kayla, any you want to jump in and say about just what this all means?
Yeah,
Kayla?
I do think that it all does come back to democracy. A lot of the threads of our conversation do. So on one hand, you have the January 6th hearings where you're seeing that a group of people were trying to subvert the will of the people. And then you have the Supreme Court ruling and have the majority of the Supreme Court was appointed by presidents who did not win the popular vote. You have really low voter turnout at the local level where voting really, really makes a difference. And I just think that all of that just goes to show people really need to get involved in their democracy at the level where it matters, so that if we build power at the city and state levels, we can eventually fix our federal democracy so that it reflects the will of the people.
All right, Sam Ford. Sam or Will. I don't think Sam Ford's with us today.
Not the first time I've done that. I think that we have a lot to think about as voters in DC about what it is that we want, and I think that DC politicians, the Board of Elections, whoever, we need to do a revamp of civic engagement and political education. Really understanding voting in context, so that people can really get an idea of what their vote means and what civic engagement entails beyond just voting and being informed. I think that'll really, it wouldn't solve apathy in a sense, but it goes a long way in clearing up misconceptions.
Will, you got the last word.
Hard for me to combat what everyone else said, though. I agree with Sam's point. You do have voter apathy, and I don't even know if it's increased because of COVID-19 when everyone was in the house. It really was already there. You have candidates who they come out and they say, I'm all for the people. I'm all for them. I want to help. I don't think there's any doubt by that. But you also got to think on the other side, power comes with that. I learned reading what Sam and James have written about the council chair in DC. Wow, council chair got a decent amount of power running the meetings and the agenda. You set an agenda, you're setting what can be done. Point blank, period. And and being the governor in Maryland, Democrat hasn't even had the seat for 8 years. So what does that tell you? You got Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. And just a final little nugget that Sam also mentioned. Sam was he been on point today, always on point. But when he mentioned about some folks who are Democrats, and I think, Denise, you and I touched on this. In Prince George's County, a lot of churches all around, lots and lots. It doesn't have to be Baptist. It doesn't have to be Presbyterian. There is a social conservative nugget in churches. And if you think it's a lot of liberalism going on in churches, listen to some of the main pastors who have come out and said, I'm not marrying no one of the same sex. My Bible tells me that's not the case. What have the Times said today? Leave that question there.
Wow, you just opened up another can of worms there, Will. And that could have taken us into another conversation. But I think that really goes to show what we have, why we as journalists really need to pay attention to what's going on in these legislatures. Clearly, just going out to vote is not the answer. Staying engaged and following what those issues are and how people vote on those issues. And sometimes candidates, I'll say that maybe for a candidate like Trayon White, who might need a little help sometimes in getting his agenda forward. Candidates can be left out there on their own if they've got an agenda that the people want. And I think that's what you all are talking about. And our power is being eroded. And that's what the Supreme Court decisions over the last couple of days are showing us. So with that, we've gone over. We might have to start extending this last Friday's show to about an hour and a half, and just give us all a half an hour to do our thing. But I want to thank all of you all for being with us. I want those who are watching to make sure that you follow Will Ford, Sam Collins, Jamila Bay, and Caleb Benjamin. They're all on social media. Follow their stories. Follow us here at the Washington Informer. Submit your questions. If there's something you want them to follow up on, that's what they're here to do. So again, thank you all for being with us, and thank everybody. I think we're done right now, Chevy. So have a great weekend. Be safe, and I might see you out there in front of the Supreme Court. I don't know. All right. Talk to you.
Thanks, Denise.
All righty. Who is this?